What's the first thing you think of when you think of the word monkey? Do you think of this? Or that? Or even that? Or do you think of the most famous monkey of all time? Some would say, the king. The one. The only.
Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
King Kong is a great film. I can't talk about it in depth, because what hasn't been said that hasn't been said already? It was revolutionary for its time and paved the way for special effects to come. Nearly every scene is iconic and cemented in pop culture, and even today it's still ridiculously entertaining, even though it could be for reasons the filmmakers didn't intend. Kong definitely took center stage, with a lot of the human characters being thrown to the side. Not to say that they aren't great. Carl Denham is played great by Robert Armstrong, and Fay Wray is iconic as Ann Darrow, even though half of her dialogue is just screaming. I don't know, you could just stop screaming and, do something. But the rest of the cast, just fodder for stop-motion monsters to kill. Besides this guy, Jack Driscoll, my god. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but he's incredibly sexist for no reason, to the point where it reaches over the top.
I think this is awfully exciting. I've never been on a ship before.
Well, I've never been on one with a woman before. You're all right, but women just can't help being a bother. Made that way, I guess. I guess I love you.
Why, Jack, you hate women.
Yeah, I know. But you aren't women.
Jesus Christ. But other than that, it's a great movie, and one of my favorite films to watch as a kid. It made me fall in love with monster movies, and King Kong became one of my favorite movie monsters of all time. So what do you do when you want Kong to fight another monster? Well, that's quite difficult, because at the end of the original, he got obliterated by airplanes. But who needs consistency when you got dollar signs in your eyes? Just bring him back from the dead. Now who's he gonna fight? Well, another monster, of course. Who is it gonna be? Well, there's this great movie about the horrors of nuclear bombs and how the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima caused paranoia and terror towards the people of Japan. Why don't we take the monster from that film and have them duke it out? That would be sick. And Hollywood heard our prayers, because there's a film about it released by Warner Brothers of all people. Kong vs. Godzilla. Let's see if it's any good. I bought the Blu-ray, so let's pop it in and see how it goes. Weird, the effects on this cover look much more dated than I remember from the trailer. What if I flip it onto the other side? Monkeys, love them or hate them, they're one of the most interesting animals in the animal kingdom. The film industry thought that too, so they decided to make movies about them. But not just any movie, movies where they are the scariest things known to man. Big monkeys, small monkeys, apes, even Bigfoot. You name them, I'm talking about them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Monkey Mayhem. King Kong vs. Godzilla is a film released in 1962 and is directed by Ishirō Honda, the director of the original Godzilla. This film was originally conceived back in the 30s, but the project was much different than the final product. Willis O'Brien, one of the original animators for King Kong, pitched an idea to RKO about a sequel to King Kong where Kong fights a giant version of the Frankenstein monster. Yes, like a giant version of the Boris Karloff character from the original. But the project never went through. Could you imagine?
It's alive! In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God.
Godzilla. The project was shelved for decades until Toho, the people behind the Godzilla films, wanted to make another movie. He was in hibernation for years after Godzilla raids again, aka molasses in movie form, so they brought him back for this, and the rest is movie history. When releasing the film to the US, Universal decided to recut the whole film, adding some new cast members, narration, crappy dubbing, and music. Sounds horrible, right? Well, guess what? That's the only version I have. I need to rant about this Blu-ray because literally this is the worst thing I own. Well, besides this. There's no option to switch from the English version to the Japanese version, so it forces you to watch the crappy version without changing it. Even worse, the movie doesn't even have a menu. When you put the disc in, the movie just starts, and when the movie ends, it just starts all over. Thanks, Universal. So the footage I'm going to be using is from the English version. I have seen the original Japanese cut and will talk about it if necessary, but the story is basically the same in both versions. With the only difference being, the original has more of a comedic tone, English version has more of a serious tone. Why did they do this? Ask Universal, I couldn't tell you. Let's begin, shall we? The film begins with the most generic Earth shot with the most generic sci-fi music you can possibly think of. Think of a Day the Earth Stood Still with no brim, if you will. A UN officer introduces us with a little bit of exposition that has nothing to do with the movie. And when I mean exposition, I mean a lot of it, like it just never ends.
Considerable Japanese scientists on the very machine winner of last year's Nobel Prize for Medicine has reported a strange rather amazing discovery in chemotherapy.
In case you're wondering, no, this is not in the original cut. All scenes with this guy are put in to appeal to Western audiences, in case you couldn't tell. Now we go back to the original footage. Members of a company are looking for a brand new advertising campaign to boost TV ratings. The head of the company says that he's looking for a giant monster that might be on Mysterious Island, and he wants 2 schmucks, Sakurai and to bring the monster back to Japan. Oh yeah, also I sincerely apologize in advance for the dubbing, because, well, you'll see.
Who out there is watching our show? Nobody, because it's dull and boring and without imagination. That's why. Pacific Pharmaceutical demands publicity. You two are going to Faro. Find me a genuine monster, if he exists or not.
So I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of holes to this plan. First off, how would you know that bringing a giant monster to Japan would help boost ratings? Especially in this universe when a lizard the size of skyscrapers has gone through Japan numerous times and wreaked havoc and killing thousands of people. Second off, how's he gonna control a giant monster? Wouldn't it be worse for your company to spend millions of dollars on military service and have the monster destroy whole buildings? And third, he describes bringing berries back to the island that the monster stays at. Why don't you use those for TV ratings? Make advertisements all across your show and make it a product. That way people don't have to be killed. I'm thinking too much about a movie where men in rubber suits fight each other. Let's move on. An American submarine is strolling across the ocean until the captain sees a strange light appear from an iceberg. They go over and check it out but crash into it like a bunch of idiots. It turns out to be Godzilla. When I said Godzilla was in hibernation, I forgot I meant that literally. This picks up right where the last movie left off, where the military trapped him in ice and left him frozen for years. Oh my god, that straight up looks like pee. Wait a minute. Since Godzilla's been in that iceberg for years, you think he let it go whenever he had to? Yeah, it's definitely pee. So we get our first glimpse of Godzilla and the boring UN guy again, cutting off the excitement. Great. He describes more boring exposition, and then we get back to the fun stuff. The military immediately go out on the hunt, and we get the cutest looking tanks in the history of tanks. My god, they look like Warhammer figurines. This part is exactly what you want. A guy in a suit, miniatures, a small set, and a lot of fire, pyrotechnics, and explosions. I love it. 5 seconds later, Sakurai and make it to the island on some random boat. And you know how the island in most movies is called Skull Island, like in the 30s one? The remakes in the newest Kong film? Well, in this version, for some reason, it's called Faro Island. Why is that? Did they not own the rights to the name? Maybe Skull was too controversial? Not nearly as controversial as this next part. Oh boy. If you're easily offended, I highly recommend skipping to this time code right here. You ready? Alright, let's go. So they get onto the island and the natives bring them into their village. And yes, they are in fact in brownface. First, murders in the rue morgue and now this. Did people not look at this for a second and be like, this is a little intolerant, maybe we should tone this down? But anyhow, I don't want to dig deep into this and I just want to move on. He tries telling the chief that he's a good guy by blasting J-pop through a speaker. And then pulls out cigarettes and gives them to a small child.
Jesus Christ!
And the two go searching trying to find Kong. And we get some really bad comedy routines, like a poor man's Abbott and Costello, which causes an avalanche. A small child runs around the village and we see what we finally came for. The one, the only, a squid, yeah! The mom tries searching for her son and then gets trapped by the giant squid. Helpless and nowhere else to go, they think they're dead, until we finally get our boy, King Kong. And he looks just as good as he's ever been. Yeah, if you weren't convinced that this is what he looked like from the previous footage, there he is, right there. His eyes look like they were painted onto a bear's body that's been run over by a Jeep Wrangler. He looks awful. Not nearly as awful as this fight scene between him and the squid, where he just grabs him a lot with squishy sound effects. So he throws him onto the ground and slaps back a bevy. This drink is grounded in juices from the berries shown earlier, which caused my man to take a nap, to which the natives dance around the body for, I don't know, it feels like 8 years.
A few moments later. Three days later. 6 months later.
Then, after this dance, Sakurai and were able to pick him up and bring him onto a ship. Did I miss something? Earlier they brought up that the boat they dropped the two off on crashed or it broke down in some way. So how are they able to get him on there anyway? Doesn't matter. Kong gets blown up by dynamite by the head company guy and runs off, so I mean, doesn't really matter at this point. Just get him off the island already. Oh yeah, Godzilla was in this movie, I almost forgot. He marches through an area where a train is going by. People notice this, flee. Godzilla destroys a train and then dips. Is Godzilla on autopilot? He's barely done anything cool the whole movie. I guess he just read the title of the movie and was like, King Kong versus Godzilla instead of Godzilla versus King Kong? This shit. The military somehow caught up to King Kong as he walked all the way from the ocean all the way back to Japan. Makes sense to me. And we did it. 55 minutes in, Kong and Godzilla finally met. Round of applause, boys. Are they gonna fight? Well, Godzilla just screams at him and King Kong acts like hot shit. Literally. Kong leaves again, and the two head out, never to fight again. I'm 100% true on this when I say that, and I'm not kidding. We go back to more military stuff, where they plan on stopping Godzilla in his tracks, including making a ring of fire Johnny Cash style. Yes, because a bunch of tiny flames are going to stop this hulking beast in his tracks. Genius. So we get more military stuff you see in every Godzilla film. We get this really funny stunt where the ground falls through and Godzilla trips. Now we cut back to Kong. He's pissed just like Godzilla and is destroying a lot of the city. He bites on a piece of electrical wire and the lead characters bring up that the electricity makes him stronger, which by the way, is not a power Kong had in the previous movie. In fact, this might be something from Willis O'Brien's Old Pitch. In Frankenstein, the monster was created through lightning and electricity from Frankenstein's lab. And in Ghost of Frankenstein, Igor, played by Bela Lugosi from Murders in the Rue Morgue, brings up that electricity makes him stronger.
The lightning. It is good for you. Your father was Frankenstein, but your mother was the lightning.
There is more proof that Kong was supposed to be Frankenstein's monster this whole time. The more you know. Anyways, they successfully calm him down by using music the natives used when they passed him out earlier. He passes out again, and then the military decides the most genius plan in the history of plans.
Sir, Godzilla's at Mount Fuji.
The atomic bomb is out of the question. Our only chance is somehow to bring them together. Kong versus Godzilla.
Trademark. Even the characters in the movie are like, yeah, we know what you're here for. This movie's almost over, so let's just have them fight. They pick him up with balloons and soar him all the way to Godzilla's location. And man, with how the effects looked like before this point, I don't know what is real or what isn't real. Majestic. They drop the balloons and Kong hits the ground. Here we go, the battle has officially begun. On one side, you got a lizard that likes clapping his hands. On the other, you got a monkey that looks dead every scene. Let's get ready to rumble. Kong's at a disadvantage because Godzilla can, you know, shoot fire out his mouth, but he does trick him by doing two things. Well, three things. Rolling, throwing rocks, and tail grabbing. So at least there's that. This fight is really entertaining with so many things you'd want in a kaiju fight. Bad special effects, and Kong shoving a tree down his face. But things take a turn for the worse when Godzilla beats the crap out of Kong, presumably killing him, but the game changes when Kong gets struck by a lightning bolt, resurrecting him and making him more powerful. Again, going back to the Frankenstein connection. Man, if King Kong could be resurrected by lightning, he should have picked a better time of day to go on a rampage in New York City. Anyways, they continue to fight some more until they intensely hug and throw themselves into the ocean. Everybody questions whether or not Kong or Godzilla won, as they don't seem to resurface. Until Kong resurfaces and knocks Godzilla. The end. Fade to black. Yo, Adrian! I did it! Both the American and Japanese cut of this movie are undeniably flawed, but I find it extremely entertaining. The bad dubbing and random assortment of scenes in the American version, and the overall look and feel of the Japanese version gave me an ironic sense of enjoyment. I love kaiju and I'm a sucker for any monster fight, so this gave me exactly what I wanted in spades. The action is fun, the costumes are terrible, the effects are dated as hell, and I love it. The characters are super weak and unmemorable, but if you're going into King Kong vs. Godzilla for Breaking Bad level character writing, then you need to get yourself checked. For me personally, if we're talking as a movie, the English version gets 2 monkeys out of 5, but for entertainment reasons, I'll bump it up to a 3. I'll also give the Japanese cut the same rating of 3 monkeys out of 5. Alright, it's time to rate the monkey. This thing is hideous. I hate looking at it every time it's on screen. It's gross, cheap, putrid, and never once was I convinced that it was a real monkey. Its eyes are dead, its fur is disjointed, and his teeth give me the creeps. 5 monkeys out of 5. Alright, so that's the end of the review. Wait, hold up. You guys want to hear me talk about the new one, right? Alright, if you insist. So I finally watched King Kong vs. Godzilla, and yeah, it was pretty good. There isn't that much to say about it, honestly, because with a lot of what I feel about it, I feel about the 60s one. It's just a very entertaining and fun monster movie all around. The film's directed by Adam Wingard, who is a director I do enjoy. I did like The Guest quite a bit, and I liked Your Next from when I saw it. So getting him to direct this series, I think, was a really good idea. It definitely has his unique style with a lot of the synthwave soundtrack and the neon lights, especially towards the end. But it definitely has that Hollywood feel too, with how the characters are developed in a lot of the action scenes, which by the way are very well done, especially for this kind of movie. With the Monsterverse, I've been very indifferent towards it. I really liked Kong Skull Island. I thought that was really fun and really entertaining for what it was, but I didn't like the Gareth Edwards Godzilla that much. I thought that the characters were super weak. Not to say that monster movies need good characters, but when your focus is on the characters and Godzilla is not in it that much, even though it's called Godzilla, that could be a huge problem, especially because the best character they had in the movie, Bryan Cranston, they, spoiler alert, kill off a third of the way through the movie, and we have to deal with a lot of boring human characters that I just didn't care for. But I did enjoy Godzilla King of the Monsters, and for this one, I liked it way more than I did Godzilla King of the Monsters, especially when I said before with the action. In Godzilla King of the Monsters, they filmed everything in silhouette, so it was a lot of shadows and it was hard to see who was fighting who because everything was dark. But in the new one, or this version, they did a much better job with having everything being bright in the day, and even at the end when they fight in Hong Kong, there's still the bright neon colors, so it's easier to see what is going on. As with a lot of these Monsterverse movies, the characters are super weak, but what are you to expect with a Godzilla film? The main focus is on the monsters and the characters are always on the side. So I don't blame it at all for the weak character writing and just the writing in general, because there's a lot of... I guess the only complaints I could have with it is some of the jokes don't land all that much. There's way too much of them, and the writing's kind of like, it's there, but nothing all that special. I will say though, this movie's crazy. Once it gets to a point at the latter half, and I won't spoil it, it just goes off the deep end, which was not what I expected, and I thought it was awesome. So yeah, I liked the film a lot, and I highly recommend it if you're into monster movies. If I had to give the movie verdict, I would give this film 3.5 monkeys out of 5. And for the monkey himself, King Kong, I really dug him. Same way I liked him in Kong Skull Island. He's very, I don't know how to say it. It's very, his presence is enjoyable. I always enjoyed when he was on screen. So I would also give him a 3.5 out of 5. Well, that's it. Tune in next time for more Monkey Mayhem and movie reviews. And if you want to see my opinions on other films, go check out my letterbox in the link below. That I still don't know how to do outro.